Good morning, and this is the Crypto Day Morning. Today's date, Saturday, the 24th of November, 2018. My name is Derek. All bets, trades, and of the like within one's own risk reward. I'm only going to be taking a look at Bitcoin in this video, primarily only focusing on the long-term time frame. A few notes that I've made that I'm going to cover. 50% retracement, and I got two numbers, 42, 42, 4409. This is really the intermediate term stuff, and that's it. Volume. Just take a look at the long-term situation. Bottom at 1 to 3K, if not spot. What does this mean on a technical analysis? I'll explain. Alright then, so I've added some trend lines. I got this down trend line, which has a relatively decently low rate of descent. I have a horizontal ray in at 5,900, which represents the matching lows area of around 6,000. The more technical level was the bottom area of around 59. And since this move, short-term stuff, going over it very quickly on the red move down, has just continued to go lower. 18 average, rapidly declining price action of such, well below it, meaning the band is still really high. The 18 average of lows is in at 49. The 18 average of highs is 52. One way of looking at it, if it were to get to the 18 highs today, and any time it rallies, that number would only increase as it is anyway, so it would have to go up like 1,000 points. 25% gain. If it goes up to 5910 area or even 6,000, it would need to gain that of about over 1,700 points. And 400 or so right now is a 10% move. So it needs about 4 of them. So that's about a 40% move right now is required from this stage to get to 5,900. Bitcoin's a very volatile market. That's if you're looking at like video game terms, like task of a level. And that task would be for such of getting back to previous key level of support. Well, that's what the number is. And you know what? It's something these cryptocurrencies have been able to do for quite some time. After all, the 3,000 bottom would mean a 100% move to get back towards this point. So whenever you have the situation of this 18 average as it is in place right now, well then you can have some fast moves that can continue. It's got a lot lower volatility within yesterday's and today's session. We've got the holiday weekend. We have the Saturday today, Sunday. That may continue with the not quite as volatile movements, but wild plays can happen at any time. A fast move, 3,000 can happen in a matter, very probable if the situation of a big leg lower comes in like an hour or 3 or 6. And a move to this 18 average, same time frame. It can happen very fast. It's going to be very difficult to trust these rallies that will come up to us in this situation, this band, anything of that nature. Could easily pierce above it. And it makes it tough to trust, and you're going to need big volatility, a lot of stuff to happen, of course, to get out of this bear market. So that's it for that. Let's scroll back and see more of these days. And this trend line goes back quite some time. It goes to this high. This is the lower highs matching lows. Really, there's two trend lines. One from the all-time high of close to 20,000. And of course, I need a different rate of descent, which was lower on the second one. The first hit of 6,000 occurring here in February. Well, that was a big leg lower. It was a decent move from the previous support of 94.50. And then in here, little scare of breaking support as it was going down. Keyword little because second key test of an area after a big move. I usually expect there to be at least a lower high rally. Now technically this was kind of a matching low, large pierce above. And then this move in here brought the scare factor again, right as it was breaking down in here, especially right around June 22nd, the start of the summer of the Northern Hemisphere. Very scared, but it held again. Another scare movement again in August. Another scare movement again in September, and it just went sideways for quite some time before, and then finally the move happened. So whether the breakout happened, say, back in here, or any one of these spots, and it happened to have occurred in November of this month, which is still November, but it looked like that. It would have looked like that pretty much either way. Let's take a look at this next on the 3-day term time frame, and I've put in the 3,000 support line and a 1,000 support line. These are just roughly added areas. These are not exact numbers by any means. And the exact numbers, using decent rounding, given that Bitcoin is traded on multiple exchanges as it is anyway. Pretty much everything got to about 20,000 or everywhere, and a low of 150. So the exact numbers, if I were to put it, 3,085 and again at 972. And then the support line, not at 59, but at 6303. Either way, markets usually pierce extra. So as a trader, if I know that 3,200 is that key level, and 63 was before, where do I look to buy? The answer is pretty much around the number I have on that screen. And as far as the next one, which is a hair below 1,000 being psychological, if I were to put a buy order in this area, it would pretty much be around that number. Now for myself, I've only got one strategy of buying right now at 1,000, and that is literally buying the old-fashioned way, taking fiat cash and buying Bitcoin. That's the last time I had bought so, or done so, was buying roughly in this area in here. That's the last time I bought, was at the 1,000 number. So wherever the cheapest I can turn it into is what I would do. But what I'm hoping will happen is that that is not going to be needed. Why? Because if the market cooperates with me, and the market's going to do what it's going to do, in that if the 1,000 does happen to hit, and I'm not going to talk much about this until 3,000 hits if it does, but what I'm hoping is the 3,000 hit comes into play and a bear market rally would come beforehand, which means Bitcoin goes from 3,000 and then goes north of 47, at least up to around 5,000. And then I can accumulate true US dollars that way, which would then be used on buy orders at around 1,000, with a few of them coming in to buy at around 1,700, 1,900. But we'll talk definitely more about that if that situation's even to arise. So that's what I would want to come into place. Now, I don't even want to see that because, quite frankly, to me, the bottom would be either the 3,000 or that 1,000 area. 3,000 again representing the 38.2% correction from this low and this high. Just because we came from this 1,000 area doesn't mean we have to go back to it to successfully move higher. And in case, whenever you have an outstanding move, a large break of resistance, which was the case here, then that's another reason or why it might be more common where you not need to do such. Because on a break of 1,000, where was a good leg higher? Oh yeah, around 4,500 maybe, 4,500. Now this was a good leg higher, so it had two legs higher. So because of that, I would not be shocked at all if the area of 3,000 becomes that of the bottom area. Probably would pierce into the 26, 27, 28 area, which thus would make the 3,000 buy orders safe, regardless of if it's the Tether, the USDC, the TUSD, any type of spot like on Coinbase. If you're trading on Bitstamp, I'm not trading on these exchanges. However you're doing it, there's probably a decent chance right now that orders will come into play and execute. So therefore, if these areas in here fail, and you want to talk about the worst case scenario, thus the bubble, aka or similar to such as that of the tulip mania a long time ago, where you drove the price way up and it pretty much went to nothing. I need to see failure at this level, and if I do, I would expect it to pretty much fail relatively quick thereafter. I think there's a decent chance that if it does fail, it's still going to fail after making a new high post the 20,000 level. Okay. So therefore, I'll not be surprised if it comes to 3,000 if we have a very sharp bounce. Taking a look at this on the weekly time frame, and let's take a look at this volume in here. And as we can see in here from before, the volume hit a peak right near this high in December of 2013. Where do we see some other big volume? Here, which would have been the leg lower. Here, volume, big volume can come at big turning points. So bottoms, tops. In this case, we have, and of course, big rallies and sell-off when price goes up and down so much because it takes a lot of volume to do that. But you have this one in here. Then this one here, like a little spark rally. This got the rally going more than anything. And then a lot of lower rally, a lot of lower volume within a rally. Volume tops in here. Now we have, it does so at the high prices at the 20. Lower volume. So we can almost draw a trend line in here, and now a spike in volume, which makes sense. You're only supposed to expect that when you get that of a change like we had, matching lows, lower highs break to the downside. Whether it broke it to the upside or downside, I would have expected a decent size rally move. If these price actions of coming between this range of 3 to 1,000 occurs with volume coming back up and probably even barely breaking above this rally, then that's definitely something I want to consider. But this volume to me is misleading in many directions. One, Bitcoin is traded on multiple exchanges, so getting a cumulative volume number would be more beneficial. Number two, volume can be shown in two crosses. One in Bitcoin and two in US dollars. For higher prices is just going to normally make, well, if this was shown in US dollars versus Bitcoin, the volume would look so much different because the amount of Bitcoin and US dollar ratio traded here compared to back there would just be staggering. And something, I don't know if some other sites have it. I've known about this for quite some time since I learned how to trade a decade ago, is the difference within up volume and down volume. And this is more of a short-term analysis as far as great, or short-term trading, as far as a great tool. And again, I don't have it, but when you can get the amount of, on a single period, let's just quickly show the 1 hour time frame. If you can see, you can get an idea of if it's the buyer or seller volume, because let's just say in a particular hour in a market, 5,000 transactions were done. Well, some of those were buys and some of those were sells, and maybe 3,000 or 4,000 of them were buys, or volume wise. Just something I would think would be interesting to look at, but since I can't, I'm not going to talk much more about that situation. Okay. So I've already talked about if and not. If this area is not, then don't be surprised. It's the fail spot. To me, this is the key area where if we're going to have the point A high, point B lows, that's where the point B lows would come into play. So let's talk about these numbers here, the 42.42 and the 44.09. This is a representation of a 50% retracement. 50% between here and here, because that's what it's done this move. It's halfway there at 42, and that's what the price we have now. That's 6,000 divided by 3,000, which is 2, to the root of 0.5, which is 50%, and then multiply the low again, you will get 42.42. Now, if the correct way that I would want to look for a 50% retracement from one key level to the next is the following. I will take this number of 6303 and divide it by 3085, which is barely over 2.04. And then I'm going to take that number to the root of 0.5 and then multiply it by 3085. And in doing so, I get 4,409. And really, the exact numbers really don't mean much anyway, other than knowing what to do from them. Case in point, markets usually pierce extra below these levels. But in this case, roughly around 4,300, 4,400 is that 50% move, which is the area in which it has been congesting from. So at this stage, we're looking for the fast move, one direction or another, when it gets out from within this range, simply on a mathematical level, knowing that it's went from 6,000 to 42. I can't make a case for where it's going to go next. It's almost, to me, as if that is a coin flip. Anyway, thank you for tuning in to this video. I hope it has been educational, informative, and all that kind of stuff. Share this video with any friends who you think may have had any help from this channel. And have yourself a magnificent weekend. Bye-bye.